Welcome to ghosting. When I was a little boy, I had a tremendously horrifying dream. I was atop a hill running from something. I don't know why, but I didn't see the thing I was running from, nor was I the one who started running. It felt as if, as soon as I fell asleep, I inhabited someone's body. I kept running and running until I reached the edge. I decided to slide down, not looking back. Once I reached the bottom, I thought I was too far ahead for this thing to catch me if I took a second look at it. I was wrong. I saw it running faster than anything I've ever seen. I nearly pissed myself. All I could make out was a giant, dog-like beast with no facial features besides a large, gaping mouth. I heard someone yell at me. "Come on!" they shouted. I was so busy running I didn't realize someone was right next to me. We kept running, then we saw a large gate. It was way too big for us to climb over, and there was not enough time for us to push it open, so the person next to me decided that we should use the bricks slipping out of the gate wall as ledges for us to climb on. After we climbed over, we high-fived and started taunting the thing. It ran into the gate, and the gate went flying. My heart sank. We instantly regretted the last 5 seconds and began running as fast as our legs would allow us to. We reached a highly populated city area and tried to hide. The beast began growing. It knocked over buildings. I stared in shock as the beast slowly began stalking towards me. I was locked in place. I couldn't move even if I tried. A shiver crawled down my spine and my hair stood on end. I could hear the creature snarling. I watched in horror as the beast grinned from ear to ear, blood trickling from between the creases in its teeth. After witnessing its power, I quickly realized the blood was not its own. It opened its mouth wide and snapped it shut, dropping the other half of the corpse that was in its mouth to the ground. Then I blacked out. I woke up in a pool of sweat, crying like a child. Not surprising, since I was a child. Fast forward a few years later. I have the same dream, but this time I can make things out better. It was like watching an old film on a brand new TV. This time the person beside me was not an unknown face. It was a person I knew. I looked at the face for a few seconds. It was my crush. A strange thing, I'm aware, but I don't control what happens. I just control my own body and hope for the best. This time I started the dream mid-slide. This time, instead of climbing the wall, I grabbed her hand and pulled her around a right turn. We kept running until we saw a small house. It wasn't a long run, so the thing didn't have time to catch up. Now I think you might want to grab something that makes you feel safe. We ran into the house. She spotted a closet, so we ran in and hid in it. We held our breaths every time we heard growling. Then I realized something. I think we both realized something. The beast knew we were here. Not just in this house, but it knew our exact location. It was waiting for us to come out, waiting for us to give up and surrender our lives to it. Eventually it grew tired of waiting and ripped half of the closet off. We ran to it and climbed on top of it. We got halfway when the beast extruded a spike from its back. The spike went right through my side. She called for me and screamed in horror as she saw the spike. I winced in pain and slowly pulled myself off the spike. I couldn't keep going, so I just rolled off onto the ground and jogged to the window and jumped through. For some reason, the thing was slowed down. We used that to our advantage and pushed the gate open slightly and slid through. We ran aimlessly until we felt safe. I tied my hoodie around my waist to stop the bleeding. We asked some of the people about the thing that chased us, and they said we should talk to some guy who lived within city limits, but was still mostly isolated from society. When we got there, we asked him about it, and he said that we should check the file cabinet. I asked him what to look for, and he said look for a file without a name. I found it and read it. I nearly dropped to my knees crying. The thing was unstoppable. And then it ended. One time I had a dream where I wanted to get back to real life. So I just closed my eyes and tried to get back to real life. But I woke up in a different version of my room. After what felt like a couple of hours, I was desperate to get back to real life. After a few days, dream days, of course, I started going crazy, even thinking suicidal thoughts. I thought if I kill myself, I would wake back up, but never could. I would stab myself and just be in a lot of pain, but never die. Then I woke up in what I thought was my room, but after a few minutes of heavy breath, hands started to grab me from underneath my bed. Pulling me towards them, I close my eyes, and for this time I really do wake up, but the power's out. Not being able to see anything, my brain comes up with a whole new room. I walk around my fake room, running into things that were there in real life. After a couple of minutes, I realize what's happening. Search for my phone, and I find it. I turn on the flashlight and make my way to my parents' room. I was only 10 years old. I make my way to my parents' room, and in an hour the power turns back on. I finally feel safe to go to sleep, knowing when I wake up it won't be pitch black again. So I go to bed in my parents' room, and have a dream where I wake up in my parents' bed, but they're gone. It's bright outside, so I think this is real life. As I go to leave my parents' room, two deformed figures come out of my parents' bathroom. The figures are mimicking my parents' voice, but the voices are very distorted. So I obviously start running away. But as I'm running, the hallway gets further and further away, and I run slower and slower. The figures finally catch up to me and tell me they will fix me and make me perfect. But as they are dragging me, their figures change more and more into my parents. Then they start asking me if I'm okay, and I hear an alarm. And then I wake up to my parents tapping me on my shoulders, asking me if I'm okay, and the alarm going off. I quickly grab a pair of scissors and run towards the bathroom, yelling, "If I'm in a dream, the demons will get me!" Nothing happened, so I yelled it again. Then my parents asked me if I'm okay. I looked at them and started bawling my eyes out in fear, and I am still paranoid of that dream till this day. In my town, there's an old shack. The old shack is right next to a massive pond filled with all manner of childhood playthings. Lily pads, frogs, lobsters, the whole package. It was a favorite spot for all the kids in the town. And then someone fell in. April 6th, 1987. A bright spring day brings a happy town and happy kids. Most of said kids congregated around the old shack and its wondrous pond. So many treasures to be found. A shiny rock in the shed, pure gold. Little pebbles shaped vaguely like hearts around the edges. Congrats, my friend, you've found the rubies of legend. One such child was more adventurous, and he could swim decently far. The parents of the town had one rule, and it was an easy one. Don't swim out too far into the pond. Sure, it was just a pond, if a little big, but the center was filled with tangly seaweed and sand so loose it was like quicksand, and rocks dotting around like sharp teeth. Many a swimmer had been cut. This child knew the rule, but he didn't care. He knew he'd find something, he just knew it. He dives and sees it. The shiniest rock he'd ever seen, like a pearly white gem on a wedding ring. He'd prove them all wrong about there being nothing. He could finally do it. As the kid dives, the rock sinks. What? He digs through the sand and his hand closes around the pearl. The unhinged mouth of the gulper closes around him too. See, nobody knew that the lake had caution tape around it for a reason. Those red splashes on the shed? Old paint. What do you mean there are biohazard signs around the pond? It wasn't a waste dumping point, no. To this day, if you swim into the pond of the town of Meyer, if you swim to the middle of the pond and you look down, you'll see the shiniest pearl you've ever seen. All you need to do is ignore the teeth, the tentacles, and the waist, and you can get the shiniest pearl to show all your new friends. So this happened to me when I was trying to go back to sleep at 4:30 a.m. I woke up at 4:30 and got water, so when I went back to bed, I had a dream of when I was 10, and I was taking my nephew to the living room. I was carrying him for some reason. So when I reached the living room, everything went black, and it felt like I fell. I tried to get up, but I couldn't. I couldn't even open my eyes. I could only get up and open my eyes when it felt like something touched my shoulder. Now it was 8:28 a.m. My brother was awake, so I asked him if that was normal and if it ever happened to him. He said, "I don't think that's normal." I got scared, and I'm still a little scared. If this has ever happened to you, can you tell me what it was like to you, please?